I've applied to over 100 jobs on LinkedIn. That's just LinkedIn alone. Nothing, not even a callback.
Caitlin, a university graduate, shared her numbers online. 647 job applications before finally landing a role.
Nobody will even give me an interview. I don't understand how people are finding full-time jobs. I really don't get it.
Another student said. These aren't isolated complaints, they are the soundtrack of a generation. 2 decades ago, the path was predictable. Go to school, graduate, get a degree, step confidently into a career that could last a lifetime. Today, that path feels like a cruel joke. Job listings are vanishing. Competition is swelling. For the first time in history, fresh graduates are more likely to be unemployed than the general workforce. In the United States, unemployment for recent graduates is at 5.3%. That's higher than the national average of 4.2%. It's the highest ever recorded for new grads. And it's not just America. In the UK, more than half of university graduates are now considered unemployable. In China, youth unemployment hit 17%. In Australia, graduate job postings keep falling while universities continue pumping out degree holders like a factory. The result is clear. A global unemployment and underemployment crisis, leaving millions of young people staring into the mirror, wondering how their future plans disappeared so quickly. But the real question is why? What's driving this collapse of opportunity for a generation that was promised the world? To find out, we have to start with the broken promise of higher education. For decades, one idea has been drilled into young people. Go to school, get good grades, earn a degree, and the world will open its doors. Parents repeated it, teachers encouraged it, politicians promised it. Education was supposed to be the great equalizer. But for Gen Z, that promise is broken. Graduates are pouring out of universities by the millions, yet the jobs waiting for them are shrinking. In some cases, they don't exist at all. 20 years ago, a college degree was a ticket to the middle class. Today, it can feel like a very expensive gamble. The numbers tell the story. In the US, recent graduates now face higher unemployment than the general workforce. In the UK, graduates are struggling in the toughest job market since 2018. More than half are considered unemployable. In China, the flood of degree holders has collapsed the job market entirely. And in Australia, graduate job postings continue to decline year after year. For many young people, it feels like betrayal. They invested years of study, sleepless nights, and thousands in tuition, only to be told the system doesn't have room for them. And it's not just about jobs, it's about identity. A degree was meant to signal talent, ambition, and potential. Now it often signals debt, frustration, and disappointment. So what happened? Why did the value of higher education fall apart so quickly? Part of the answer lies in a force more powerful than any single government or university. A force that is rewriting the very definition of work itself: artificial intelligence. For centuries, people have worried that new technology would take their jobs. Back in the 1800s, textile workers smashed machines they believed were stealing their livelihood. And during the rise of the automobile, thousands who worked with horses lost their roles, only to see new industries born. But this time feels different. Because for the first time in history, we've built a tool that doesn't just replace human muscle, it replaces human thought. Artificial intelligence. Economists once said AI would simply be a tool, helping workers do their jobs better. But AI isn't just another tool, it's the first invention capable of performing general cognitive labor. And that has terrifying implications for graduates. Take Andrew Cole. He shared his story online in a semi-viral video. He once worked for a YouTube channel as a writer. One of his scripts pulled in millions of views. Another became the channel's second most viewed video of all time. And then, he was fired. The channel's owner simply fed Andrew's writing into AI, which churned out lower quality but still profitable videos. Millions of views kept rolling in. Andrew tried again, this time publishing books on Amazon, but he quickly realized other creators were using AI to mass-produce books at a speed he could never match. His skills, once valuable, suddenly meant very little. Andrew summed it up simply: "I can't compete with this AI. Every time I build new skills, the bar gets lowered, and those skills become useless." He's not alone. Goldman Sachs predicted AI could wipe out 300 million jobs worldwide. And just 2 years later, we're already seeing early evidence. Low-skill admin jobs, creative roles, even technical fields like finance and computer science are feeling the pressure. One Oxford study found unusually high unemployment among graduates in technical fields where AI is strongest. Some tech companies have stopped hiring junior developers entirely. Instead, they're investing in AI systems that can replace them. And here's the brutal truth. If AI eventually writes flawless code or analyzes data better than humans, corporations will make a cold calculation. Why pay 10 junior workers when one supervisor plus AI can do the job faster and cheaper? Right now, AI still makes mistakes. It still needs oversight. But that could change at any moment. And when it does, entry-level jobs may vanish overnight. For graduates, this is a chilling reality. The very jobs meant to help them get a foot in the door are the easiest ones for AI to automate. If artificial intelligence is the loud disruptor, then economic uncertainty is the silent killer. Because even in industries where AI isn't strong yet, companies are freezing their hiring. Not because they don't need people, but because they're scared of what comes next. Trade wars, tariffs, unstable policies, all of it creates hesitation. When businesses get nervous, they stop investing. And one of the first things they cut back on is hiring new talent. Harvard economist David Deming put it simply, young workers are seen as an investment, like capital. And in uncertain times, investments are the first thing a business cuts. It makes sense on paper, but for graduates, it's devastating. In the US, the official unemployment rate sits at around 4%. That sounds healthy. But for college graduates, the rate is 6.6%, the highest in more than a decade, excluding the pandemic. For the first time in modern history, graduates are worse off than the general workforce. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis reports that hiring has slowed to its worst pace in 10 years. At the same time, job cuts are up 47% year on year. Even elite MBA graduates from schools like Stanford and Wharton are struggling to land jobs. If the so-called best and brightest can't get through the door, what hope do average graduates have? And this isn't just an American story. In Australia, unemployment remains low on paper, around 4.1%. But the economy actually lost jobs when it was expected to add 20,000. The Wall Street Journal called it proof that businesses are worried about unpredictable trade policies. In the UK, graduate opportunities have dried up to levels not seen since 2018. And in China, there are so many graduates flooding the market that no one stands out. When everyone has a degree stops meaning much. But there's an even darker element to this freeze. Something that feels almost like deception. Ghost jobs. Many companies now post positions that don't actually exist. They advertise roles they've already filled, or roles they never planned to fill at all. The pandemic changed everything about how we work. For a moment, it felt like a reset button had been pressed. Remote jobs exploded. People could work from anywhere. New graduates thought the digital world might finally give them a fair shot. But that dream didn't last. Today, remote work is collapsing. On LinkedIn, only 1 in 5 job postings are remote or hybrid, yet those few listings receive nearly 60% of all applications. Competition is brutal. During the pandemic years, the Great Resignation gave workers leverage. People quit jobs in search of higher pay and more purpose. That opened doors for newcomers. It gave recent graduates a chance to step in. But by 2025, that window has slammed shut. Now, employees are holding on to their jobs. Companies are hiring less, and the opportunities at the bottom of the ladder have all but disappeared. Even job hopping, once the fastest way to boost your salary, doesn't pay like it used to. Back in 2023, workers who switched jobs saw raises of nearly 8%, while those who stayed earned about 5%. Today, it's flipped. Job hoppers only gain 0.2% more than those who stay put. In some cases, switching jobs even means taking a pay cut. Customer success specialist Joss Fogel told the Wall Street Journal his story. He once earned $170,000 a year, plus bonuses. After being laid off, the best new role he could find paid $120,000. His comment summed up the new reality. No one is paying like they used to. If you don't like it, there are 50 people behind you they'll call instead. This new environment is creating what feels like a throwback to the baby boom era, a time when workers stayed loyal to one company for decades. Except now, it isn't loyalty driving the trend, it's fear. Economic anxiety, AI disruption, fewer people quitting, fewer backfill opportunities, all of it clogs the entry-level ladder. For new graduates, the timing couldn't be worse. They spent their teens and early 20s preparing for a world of opportunity. Instead, they've walked straight into a bottleneck. When the old paths close, new ones appear, and Gen Z is beginning to chart a very different course. For decades, the mantra was clear: get a degree, land a white-collar job, climb the ladder. But now, many young people are rejecting that script entirely. Some are turning toward entrepreneurship. In 2023, people aged 18 to 24 became the fastest-growing group of new business founders in the United States. Young entrepreneurship is near record highs. Starting a business is easier than ever, thanks to new digital tools and AI itself. But it's not an easy road. Running a business or even freelancing as a one-man show can be overwhelming. Still, for many, it feels better than sending hundreds of unanswered job applications into the void. Others are heading in a different direction altogether, toward blue-collar trades, plumbing, electrical work, skilled construction. These roles don't require a 4-year degree. They pay well, they're in demand, and they can't be outsourced to algorithms. As older tradespeople retire, a huge labor gap is opening up, and Gen Z may be the generation that fills it. Geoffrey Hinton, often called the godfather of AI, even put it bluntly, if you want a truly AI-proof job, consider becoming a plumber. Physical jobs that require hands-on skill and judgment are some of the safest careers in this new era. But it's not just trades. Healthcare, nursing, teaching, and certain engineering fields remain resilient. They demand human interaction and problem-solving that machines can't yet replicate. But there's a paradox. Many students already use AI to get through their degrees. They rely on it for research, writing, and projects. The strange result? They're earning degrees with the help of a technology that may soon eliminate the very jobs those degrees were meant to secure. Meanwhile, industries that once looked promising, journalism, copywriting, graphic design, even entry-level programming, are now among the riskiest choices a graduate can make. The value of a university degree is slipping fast. In America, UK, and Canada, the so-called wage premium for graduates, the extra earnings you're supposed to get for having a degree, is shrinking every year. Gen Z graduates are standing at one of the most uncertain crossroads in modern history. They were promised that education would be the golden ticket, that a degree would guarantee stability, opportunity, and a better life. But the reality they've stepped into is far more complex. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the very definition of work. Economic uncertainty is freezing opportunities before they even appear. The pandemic left behind a workplace clogged with fewer openings and more competition. And yet, through all of this, a new story is beginning to emerge. A generation once expected to follow the same path as their parents is breaking away. Some are building businesses from scratch. Others are finding stability in trades, healthcare, and hands-on work. Many are questioning the very value of higher education and choosing skills over debt. This adjustment period is painful, but history shows that humanity adapts. When old doors close, new ones open. When industries collapse, new ones are born. For young people today, the path ahead may not look like it did 20 years ago, but one advantage remains: time. At the start of their careers, Gen Z has years to learn, pivot, and reinvent themselves in ways older generations could not. The world of work is changing faster than ever, but in that change lies possibility. The challenge for Gen Z will be to navigate the turbulence without losing hope, and to build a future on their own terms. Because while the crisis is real, so is the resilience of an entire generation.
For 6 long years, the world held its breath, suspended in a state of bewilderment. There was no trace, not a single whisper, just a profound and haunting silence. This silence enveloped the story of one of the most audacious financial criminals in modern history. The trail had gone completely cold, the mystery seemingly destined to remain unsolved. Then, at the beginning of this year, a sudden jolt sent shockwaves through global media outlets. Headlines exploded across news sites and television screens, each one more sensational than the last. The most wanted woman in the world found and missing. Cryptoqueen Ruja Ignatova found alive after disappearing 5 years ago. The ghost had seemingly returned to haunt the world she had so thoroughly deceived and abandoned. What could possibly have ignited these explosive and dramatic statements after so many years of nothing? The trigger was something tangible, something made of brick and mortar, a symbol of extreme wealth. It all began with the public announcement of a staggering real estate sale in the heart of London. A luxurious penthouse, nestled in the upscale and exclusive suburb of Kensington, was listed for a cool $15.5 million. The prestigious real estate firm Knight Frank was handling the deal, a name synonymous with luxury property. However, a crucial detail of British law threw a wrench into the proceedings. The law dictates that a property sale cannot be completed through a proxy. Only the true, legal owner can finalize the transaction. And who was the registered owner of this opulent London residence, this multi-million-dollar testament to ill-gotten gains? It was none other than Ruja Ignatova herself. The discovery of her direct connection to the property was a bombshell. As soon as this fact became public knowledge, Knight Frank acted swiftly and decisively, removing the high-profile listing from their books. For legal experts and seasoned investigators who had been tracking this case for years, the implication was clear and monumental. The fact that the penthouse had not been transferred to another owner, that Ruja's name was still on the deed, strongly suggested one thing: Ruja Ignatova is very much alive and, somewhere out there, actively evading the long arm of the FBI. This single detail, a simple property listing, could represent a monumental breakthrough in the infamous and sprawling OneCoin case. After all, the founder of this colossal pyramid scheme is not just any fugitive, she is a global icon of financial crime. Ruja Ignatova is currently one of the most prominent figures on the FBI's top 10 most wanted criminals list, a distinction reserved for the most dangerous and elusive fugitives. The US government is so determined to bring her to justice that they are offering a reward of up to $5 million for any information that leads directly to her arrest and subsequent conviction. This isn't just a story about a vanished fraudster, it's about a woman who allegedly orchestrated a global scam worth an almost unimaginable sum estimated to be between $4 billion and $15 billion. The story of Ruja's disappearance is as dramatic as the crime she allegedly committed. On the fateful day of October 25, 2017, she calmly boarded a commercial Ryanair flight. The plane took off from Sofia, the capital of her native Bulgaria, and was bound for Athens, Greece. Once that plane touched down, Ruja Ignatova seemingly vanished from the face of the earth, stepping out of the public eye and into the realm of legend and speculation. The timing of her departure was eerily precise and highly suspicious. It occurred just 13 days after a US district court in New York had issued a sealed international arrest warrant for her, a warrant that would soon be made public. Many speculate she was tipped off, using her extensive network to stay one step ahead of the law. The FBI, however, offers a darker and more specific theory about how she knew they were closing in. They believe that Ignatova, ever the calculating strategist, had taken extreme measures to protect herself. Federal investigators allege that she had managed to place a bug, a listening device, in the apartment of an American boyfriend she was seeing at the time. Through this covert surveillance, she supposedly learned a devastating truth. Her lover was cooperating with the federal investigation into OneCoin. He had become an informant, feeding information directly to the authorities, who were building a case against her. This betrayal, ironically discovered through her own act of deception, was likely the final signal that her time as a free woman was running out. Just days before she took that final flight, a strange and confusing incident occurred between Ruja and her brother, Konstantin Ignatov, who was deeply involved in the OneCoin operation. She had a perplexing phone argument with him after he discovered she had purchased 2 separate plane tickets for the exact same time. One ticket was for a flight to Vienna, Austria, and the other was for the flight she ultimately took to Athens, Greece. When Konstantin questioned her about this bizarre arrangement, Ruja provided no clear explanation, deepening the mystery around her plans. She was creating confusion, a smokescreen to cover her tracks as she prepared to make her grand escape from the world stage. When she arrived in Athens, she was not alone. She was accompanied by 2 bodyguards, who later provided statements about her final known movements. They claimed they left her in the city to attend a meeting. The meeting was supposedly with a group of Russian-speaking individuals with whom she intended to go on vacation in Greece. This detail aligns with another piece of information from her brother Konstantin. He recalled that shortly before she vanished forever, Ruja had met with an influential and extremely wealthy Russian individual. She never disclosed his name, keeping his identity a closely guarded secret. This shadowy Russian connection adds yet another layer of intrigue and danger to the story of her disappearance. But who was this woman who could command such power, orchestrate such secrecy, and ultimately vanish into thin air, leaving a multi-billion-dollar crater in the global financial landscape? To understand the criminal, we must first understand her origins. Ruja Ignatova was born in 1980, with sources differing on whether her birthplace was the Bulgarian city of Ruse or the capital, Sofia. At the tender age of 10, her family made a life-altering decision to move to Germany, seeking better opportunities and a brighter future away from post-communist Bulgaria. From a young age, Ruja was described by those who knew her as exceptionally intelligent, fiercely motivated, and somewhat aloof. She excelled in her academic pursuits, demonstrating a sharp mind that also made her a gifted chess player. Her ambition was matched only by her intellect. She pursued an incredibly impressive and prestigious education, a string of qualifications that would later become the cornerstone of her credible facade. She first graduated with a degree in economics from the University of Constance in Germany, a solid foundation for her future endeavors. But she didn't stop there. She then crossed the English Channel to attend one of the most famous universities in the world, earning a second degree in European law from Oxford University. To cap it all off, she eventually obtained a PhD in law, cementing her title as Dr. Ruja. This formidable educational background was her passport into the exclusive world of high finance. With her formidable qualifications in hand, she wasted no time in climbing the corporate ladder, landing prestigious jobs that most people could only dream of. Her most notable role was at the Bulgarian branch of McKinsey & Company, a globally recognized and elite consulting firm. Working at McKinsey meant she was advising powerful corporations and dealing with immense sums of money on a daily basis. This experience gave her a front-row seat to the world of the ultra-rich. But for Ruja, being an advisor to the wealthy was not enough. She desperately wanted to be rich herself, a burning desire that consumed her. She devoured books on how to make money, searching for the secret formula to immense fortune. By the time she was 31 years old, she was successful by any normal standard, but she was still not the millionaire she aspired to be. Her daily dealings with incredibly wealthy clients at McKinsey only fueled her growing desperation and impatience. She saw the fortunes they controlled and believed she was smarter and more deserving. This simmering ambition began to curdle into a dangerous obsession. She started looking for shortcuts, for a faster path to the wealth she craved. It was around this time, in 2013, that her attention turned toward a radical new idea that was beginning to make waves in the world of finance, Bitcoin, and the burgeoning universe of cryptocurrency. Ruja Ignatova saw cryptocurrency not just as a technological innovation, but as a golden opportunity. Her background in international law and finance, combined with her extensive network of contacts from her time at McKinsey, made her a unique and credible voice on the subject. She quickly positioned herself as an expert, becoming a sought-after speaker at financial seminars and conferences across Europe. She could articulate the complex ideas behind Bitcoin in a way that was both accessible and exciting, captivating audiences with visions of a new financial frontier. She was polished, articulate, and carried the undeniable authority of her Oxford PhD, which she mentioned at every possible opportunity. She was building a reputation as a crypto visionary. It was at one such seminar, in November of 2013, that a fateful encounter took place. In the audience, a man named Sebastian Greenwood watched her speak, completely mesmerized. Greenwood was a different kind of operator, a master of a field that thrived on charisma and recruitment multi-level marketing, or MLM. He had a history of involvement in questionable schemes and understood the raw power of building a network of sellers. As he watched Ruja command the stage, captivating the crowd with her talk on crypto, a powerful idea began to form in his mind. He saw the perfect combination of hype and structure, a potential goldmine waiting to be tapped into. After her presentation, Greenwood approached her. He didn't waste time with pleasantries, instead cutting straight to the heart of his idea with a question that would change both of their lives forever. Have you ever considered multi-level marketing? The question hung in the air, a proposal for a partnership built on a shared, singular ambition. They both recognized in each other a common overriding goal that trumped all else. They wanted to get rich, and they wanted to do it quickly. Ruja had the financial credibility and the crypto narrative. Sebastian had the sales structure and the MLM playbook. Together, they believed they had found the perfect formula for an unstoppable money-making machine. Their plan was audacious and deeply cynical. They would combine the speculative frenzy surrounding cryptocurrency with the exponential growth engine of multi-level marketing. This venture was never about building a legitimate, functioning cryptocurrency with real-world value or technological innovation. The goal was far simpler and more predatory. The entire enterprise was designed to create a self-perpetuating growth cycle. A vast network of sellers, motivated by the promise of earning huge commissions, would aggressively push the product. This sales pressure would drive up the coin's perceived price, which in turn would create a sense of urgency and FOMO, fear of missing out, attracting even more people to invest, feeding the cycle anew. With the blueprint for their scheme in place, they assigned their roles. Ruja, with her banking experience, her PhD, and her polished, sophisticated persona, would be the face of the operation. She was the ideal frontwoman, projecting an image of intelligence, trustworthiness, and visionary leadership. Sebastian Greenwood, the seasoned MLM guru, would take charge of the sales side, building and managing the global network of promoters who would peddle their product. They needed a name, something bold and aspirational that could compete with the biggest name in the game. They christened their venture OneCoin, and with audacious confidence, they immediately began promoting it as the Bitcoin killer. There was, however, a shocking and fundamental flaw at the very core of their grand plan. Neither Ruja nor Sebastian had the technical expertise or the resources to actually create a blockchain. A blockchain is the essential, decentralized digital ledger that underpins all legitimate cryptocurrencies, recording and verifying every transaction. Without it, a cryptocurrency is nothing more than a fiction. But in a stroke of genius deception, they turned this crippling weakness into their greatest advantage. They simply told people that they had a blockchain, a revolutionary new one that was faster and more secure than Bitcoins. Since it didn't actually exist, they were free from the constraints of reality. Instead of a complex, decentralized network, Ruja's multi-billion-dollar crypto empire was run on something far simpler. She merely kept a record of all the OneCoins that had been bought on a centralized SQL database. In essence, it was nothing more than a glorified Excel spreadsheet that she alone controlled. This gave her absolute power. She could invent coins out of thin air. She could manually double the holdings of investors to create a false sense of prosperity, and she could arbitrarily change the price of one coin whenever she pleased, completely independent of any real market mechanics. It was a financial dictatorship masquerading as a democratic revolution. To navigate the tricky legal landscape and avoid being immediately shut down as an illegal pyramid scheme, they devised another clever loophole. OneCoin didn't technically sell cryptocurrency directly to its customers. Instead, people were convinced to purchase education packages. These packages were supposed to contain valuable materials on finance and investing, but in reality, they were mostly filled with basic, low-quality PDF files, much of which was plagiarized from other sources like Wikipedia. But the content of the packages didn't matter. The crucial part was that with every package purchased, customers received free tokens. These tokens, they were told, could then be used to mine for OneCoin. This way, OneCoin could claim it was officially selling an educational product, not a financial one. With the scam in place, Ruja Ignatova transformed herself into Dr. Ruja, a glamorous icon of the digital age. She flaunted her Oxford PhD, designer dresses, and dazzling jewelry, crafting an image of credibility and success. Dr. Ruja became a global evangelist, speaking at lavish events and giving interviews, always promising that OneCoin was the people's coin. Simple, safe, and revolutionary. She expertly played on the fear of missing out, promising OneCoin would surpass Bitcoin and offering a second chance at crypto riches. Her message was irresistible, accessible wealth for ordinary people, led by a brilliant, trustworthy guide. The timing was perfect. Bitcoin was booming, and people were desperate not to miss the next big thing. Ruja's polished image and emotionally charged message proved devastatingly effective. She wasn't just selling a coin, she was selling hope, and people invested in her as much as in OneCoin. Her academic credentials and glamorous persona made the dream of wealth feel real. Investors trusted her, believed in her, and handed over their savings. The power of her performance was enough to silence doubts. Dr. Ruja became the face of a financial revolution, one built entirely on illusion. The world was captivated, and the scam grew faster than anyone could have imagined. OneCoin's value was pure fiction. There was no blockchain, no open market, just a spreadsheet controlled by Ruja. The price of OneCoin rose whenever she decided, creating the illusion of unstoppable growth. Investors saw their accounts climb, convinced they'd made a brilliant investment. This fake success fueled a global recruiting frenzy as promoters pointed to ever-rising charts. The system was designed to grow exponentially, feeding on greed and the illusion of guaranteed returns. But cashing out was nearly impossible. OneCoin's internal exchange, Xcoinx, imposed strict limits, making it nearly impossible to withdraw real money. The money flowed in one direction from investors to Ruja and her team. When complaints arose, the company blamed technical issues or promised a future IPO. These excuses kept hope alive and money flowing in. The promise of an IPO was the ultimate bait, convincing millions to hold on to worthless tokens. The illusion of value was maintained until the very end. In reality, there was never any value at all. OneCoin's global events were more spectacle than seminar, massive arenas, loud music, and a cult-like atmosphere. Dr. Ruja was the star, captivating crowds from Macau to London. The highlight came at Wembley Arena, where she announced a new blockchain and doubled everyone's coins overnight. The crowd erupted, blinded by the promise of instant riches. No one questioned the economic absurdity. Doubling supply without demand should crash value, but Ruja simply declared the price unchanged. The spectacle was crucial for recruitment. Promoters brought new investors to witness the frenzy firsthand. The energy, the social proof, and Ruja's charisma made skepticism vanish. These events fueled the multi-level marketing engine, driving exponential growth. The promise of easy wealth was irresistible. The showmanship masked the scam's emptiness. The world watched, and the scheme grew. The illusion was complete until it wasn't. Despite the hype, cracks began to show. Online watchdogs like Behind MLM exposed the red flags: fake price increases, impossible returns, and no real blockchain. Regulators in Europe issued warnings, calling OneCoin a pyramid scheme. The first real blow came from Norwegian blockchain expert Bjorn Bjerke. Offered a job to build OneCoin's blockchain, he realized they had none. He tested the system. His transactions never appeared on the so-called blockchain display. It was all fake, just a script to fool investors. Bjorn went public, confirming the technology was a lie. His revelations shook the community, especially the technically savvy. Ruja's image of brilliance began to crumble. Doubt spread, and the foundation of her empire started to crack. The truth was out. OneCoin was a house of cards. The collapse had begun. In January 2017, the OneCoin exchange, Xcoinx, abruptly shut down, trapping millions of investors. Their digital tokens became worthless overnight. Ruja claimed the shutdown was temporary, promising a future IPO and untold riches. In reality, she was stalling for time as new investments dried up. The classic Ponzi collapse had begun: no new money, no payouts. Under mounting pressure, Ruya planned her exit. She installed her brother Constantine as the new leader, setting him up as the fall guy. This was no act of trust, it was a calculated move. Leaked emails revealed her plan: take the money, run, and leave someone else to face the consequences. Constantine inherited a bankrupt empire. Ruja prepared to vanish, leaving chaos behind. The endgame was in motion, the scam was collapsing, and Ruja was ready to disappear. As external pressure mounted, danger grew from within Ruja's inner circle. She discovered her lover and banker Gilbert Armenta was betraying her. He'd become an FBI informant. Secret recordings confirmed her worst fears. The FBI was closing in. Every conversation with Gilbert was now evidence against her. Realizing arrest was inevitable, Ruja activated her escape plan. She created chaos, confusing travel plans, handing the company to her brother, and meeting mysterious contacts. On October 25, 2017, with the FBI closing in, Ruja boarded a flight from Sofia to Athens. She vanished without a trace, leaving behind a multi-billion-dollar scam and millions of victims. Her disappearance became one of the greatest mysteries in financial crime. The empire she built on illusion crumbled overnight. The world was left searching for answers, and for Dr. Ruja. The OneCoin saga ended not with justice, but with a vanishing act. The legend of the Cryptoqueen lives on, a cautionary tale for the digital age. Since that fateful Ryanair flight in October 2017, Ruja Ignatova has not been officially seen by any law enforcement agency. Her complete disappearance has left a vacuum filled with rampant speculation and competing theories. The world is sharply divided, with two primary possibilities regarding her fate. The first theory is that she is alive and well, living in luxury and hiding in plain sight. She underwent extensive plastic surgery and is living under a new identity, using forged documents to manage the billions she stole. Evidence supporting this theory continues to mount. The recent attempt to sell her London penthouse is a significant piece of the puzzle. The property was never transferred out of her name, strongly indicating she is still alive. Furthermore, her brother Constantine traveled to Dubai immediately after her disappearance. He posted photos, falsely tagged as Bulgaria, a clear attempt to misdirect anyone following his sister's trail. Dubai is a critical location in this theory. The UAE has no extradition treaty with the United States, making it an attractive safe haven. Her connections there run deep. In 2015, she obtained a banking license in the UAE for $116 million. She allegedly sold property in Dubai worth $1 billion to Sheikh Saud bin Faisal Al Qasimi, a member of the ruling royal family. Such connections could provide protection from the FBI and international agencies. Her brother's testimony adds weight to this theory. Constantine claimed he maintained phone contact with his sister for a significant period after her disappearance, continuing until his arrest in March 2019. Some investigators speculate she's still actively controlling the remnants of the OneCoin empire, directing a new scam on the Polygon blockchain, continuing to collect millions from victims, a ghost still pulling the strings. While the idea of Ruja living a life of luxury is compelling, a far darker and more violent theory exists. This chilling version suggests the Cryptoqueen's reign came to a brutal and bloody end. According to this narrative, Ruja Ignatova was murdered in November 2018, just over a year after she disappeared. The alleged crime scene was a private yacht sailing on the Ionian Sea off the coast of Greece. The story gets even more gruesome, with sources claiming her body was dismembered and her remains thrown into the water, ensuring she would never be found. This theory posits that her criminal connections became her executioners. The alleged instigator is a name that strikes fear in the European underworld: Christoforos Amanatidis, a notorious Bulgarian drug baron known as Taki. He was believed to be Ignatova's head of security, paid €100,000 per month for her protection. Taki, currently believed to be hiding in Dubai, allegedly had deep ties to the OneCoin scheme, using it to launder his drug profits. As law enforcement pressure mounted, Ruja became a liability he could not afford, a loose end that needed permanent silencing. This murder theory gained traction following the brutal assassination of former Chief of Criminal Police Lyubomir Ivanov in Sofia, Bulgaria. When investigators searched Ivanov's home, they discovered documents in his safe containing details about Ruja's murder at Taki's hands. The web of death grew even wider. One of Taki's longtime associates, charged in Ivanov's murder, was shot dead in Cape Town in June 2023. This associate was a potential source for US investigators, and his death was another act of silencing. The chain of mysterious events doesn't end there. Just 4 days after that Cape Town murder, another key figure vanished. Frank Schneider, a former Luxembourg intelligence officer and Ruja's closest advisor, disappeared from house arrest in France. Schneider faced extradition to the US and over 40 years in prison for his OneCoin role. Whether he fled to escape justice or was silenced by the same dangerous people remains another unanswered question in this deadly saga. In the long and shadowy absence of the Cryptoqueen herself, the slow but steady gears of justice have begun to grind down on her network of accomplices. While Ruja Ignatova may have successfully vanished, many of her key lieutenants have been unable to escape the consequences of their actions. Her co-founder, the multi-level marketing guru Sebastian Greenwood, finally faced his reckoning. After being extradited to the United States, he pleaded guilty to charges of wire fraud and money laundering conspiracies. The man who helped build the pyramid now faces the prospect of spending up to 20 years behind bars, a stark contrast to the life of luxury he once enjoyed at the top of the scheme. Ruja's own brother, Konstantin Ignatov, whom she had cynically installed as the scapegoat, was arrested by FBI agents at Los Angeles International Airport in March 2019. Facing the grim reality of a long prison sentence, he chose to cooperate with prosecutors, providing them with invaluable inside information about the workings of the OneCoin empire and his sister's activities. In exchange for his testimony against other figures in the conspiracy, he was ultimately sentenced to just 34 months in prison, a sentence he had effectively already served while in custody. His betrayal of his sister was a mirror image of her own betrayal of him, a final, sordid chapter in their family's criminal enterprise. The legal fallout has also ensnared the professionals who lent the scheme a veneer of legitimacy. Mark Scott, a prominent American lawyer, was convicted for his role in laundering an astonishing $400 million of Ruja's illicit profits through a series of fake investment funds. His legal expertise, once a tool for navigating corporate law, was repurposed to hide the proceeds of a global fraud, earning him a sentence of 10 years in federal prison. Similarly, Irina Dolinska, who served as OneCoin's head of legal and compliance, an incredibly ironic title, was sentenced to 4 years in prison after she admitted to her role in laundering at least $110 million for the organization, a profound breach of the very principles she was supposed to uphold. These convictions represent significant victories for law enforcement agencies that have spent years painstakingly piecing together this complex international case. Each sentence sends a clear message that facilitating such a massive fraud will not go unpunished. However, for the millions of victims scattered across the globe, the imprisonment of a few key players offers only a hollow sense of justice. The architects and enablers are facing accountability, but the vast majority of the stolen billions remains unrecovered, and the chief architect of their financial ruin, Dr. Ruja herself, remains tantalizingly out of reach, a ghost in the machine she created. The true cost of the OneCoin scam cannot be measured in prison sentences or legal victories. It is written in the devastating stories of its victims. An estimated 3.5 million people worldwide were lured into buying OneCoin's worthless education packages. Only a tiny fraction of them, those perched at the very top of the pyramid like Sebastian Greenwood, ever made any significant money. The vast majority, the foundation upon which the entire scheme was built, lost everything. They poured their life savings, their children's university funds, and even money borrowed from friends and family into a digital black hole, facing complete and utter financial ruin for believing in a charismatic liar. Victims like Jennifer McAdam from Scotland, who lost and witnessed her friends and family lose hundreds of thousands of euros, have bravely stepped forward to share their stories. In her book, The Devil's Coin, she chronicles not only the financial devastation, but also the psychological trauma inflicted by the scam. For speaking out against the powerful forces behind OneCoin, she has faced harassment and even threats of physical harm. As she so eloquently states, criminals like Ruja Ignatova have stolen far more than just cash. They have stolen a family's future, a child's education fund, the cost of life-saving hospital treatment, or as likely the money to pay for tonight's dinner. The wounds are deep, and for many, will never truly heal. Remarkably, despite the mountain of evidence, the global warnings, and the high-profile convictions, the OneCoin scam continues to operate in the shadows. Like a financial zombie, it refuses to die. Promoters have reportedly resurrected the scheme on the Polygon blockchain, finding new and creative ways to prey on the vulnerable and uninformed. They continue to collect millions of dollars from both legacy victims holding on to a sliver of false hope and new victims unaware of the toxic history. The organization also maintains its menacing presence, allegedly instilling fear in those who dare to speak out or try to assert their rights, a testament to the powerful criminal networks that still underpin the operation. And so, the ultimate question remains, hanging over this entire saga like a dark cloud. Where is the Cryptoqueen? Is she living a life of unimaginable luxury under a new identity, shielded by powerful allies in a country with no extradition treaty? Or did her dangerous dance with the criminal underworld end in a watery grave, her body dismembered and cast into the Ionian Sea? With the recent news of her London penthouse re-emerging into the public eye, the hunt for Ruja Ignatova has been dramatically reignited. Until she is found, dead or alive, the OneCoin scandal, one of the most audacious and bizarre financial crimes of the 21st century, will remain a story without an ending, its central mystery enduring.
December 2024. Manhattan. It begins not with a bang, but with paper. In the dim quiet of a courthouse filing room, someone slides a lawsuit onto a desk. No press, no noise, just an ordinary folder filled with an extraordinary accusation. Inside, the story of a 13-year-old girl, a legendary after-party, and the names of two giants, Sean Diddy Combs and Sean Jay-Z Carter. The public has seen Diddy's empire unraveling. But now, Jay-Z, the calculated mogul, Beyoncé, the queen of poise and perfection, their names are dragged into the same darkness. Jay-Z calls it ridiculous, a heinous lie. But in the game of legacy, even a whisper can shake foundations. Especially when the throne you sits on is worth over $2.5 billion. The Carters didn't just rise. They ascended. Carefully, ruthlessly, quietly. And now everything they built teeters on the edge. To understand this fall, we need to go back, not just to their rise, but to the decisions that built an empire in the shadows. Because this isn't just about a lawsuit, it's about a dynasty that always had secrets buried beneath its gold. Brooklyn, late 1980s. Crack cocaine devours neighborhoods. Gunshots echo off the walls of the Marcy projects. And in the middle of it all, a boy named Sean Carter learns one lesson. Survive. No silver spoon, no connections. Just hustle. He sells drugs. He writes rhymes. He studies the streets like a chessboard. By his mid-20s, Jay-Z is rejected by every major label. So he creates his own, Rockefeller Records. His debut album, Reasonable Doubt, isn't just music. It's a manifesto. Ownership. Power. Vision. That mindset doesn't just build careers. It builds kingdoms. Meanwhile, in Houston, a different story unfolds. Beyoncé Knowles is 8 years old and already lighting up talent shows. Her father quits his job to manage her. Her rise is polished, precise, a pop star being engineered in real time. By 18, she's a global sensation with Destiny's Child. While Jay-Z builds from the streets, Beyoncé is built for the stage. They meet sometime in the late 90s or early 2000s. Depends who you ask. Jay-Z once said she was 16. Beyoncé says 18. Some say 17. The truth shifts with the interview. It always has. Because their relationship wasn't just romance, it was strategy. two rising brands preparing to merge. And from that moment forward, every detail of their private life would be filtered through the lens of control. May 5, 2014, New York City, the Met Gala, fashion's most exclusive night. Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and her younger sister Solange arrived dressed like royalty. What the cameras didn't catch, an elevator did. Later that evening, inside the elevator of the Standard Hotel, surveillance footage records a scene that will soon go viral around the world. Solange, usually calm and composed, suddenly unleashes a furious attack on Jay-Z, kicking, punching, screaming. A security guard struggles to hold her back. Jay-Z doesn't fight back. He simply absorbs the blows, arms raised in defense. And Beyoncé? She stands perfectly still, poised, silent, watching. No sound, no words, just 30 seconds of raw, unexplained rage. It was a glimpse into the one place no fan had ever been. Behind the curtain of the Carter dynasty. The elevator video leaks. The world explodes. Speculation fills the vacuum. Why would Solange attack Jay-Z? What happened in that elevator? The prevailing theory? Infidelity. Jay-Z had cheated on Beyoncé, and Solange was defending her sister's honor. Tabloids name Rachel Roy, fashion designer, former business associate, as Becky with the good hair. Internet detectives go wild. Clues, cryptic captions, even a line from Beyoncé's song lyrics become fuel for the fire. And the Carters? They do what they always do. Say nothing. Release a single, rehearsed statement. Our family has problems, and we're no different. We've moved on as a united family. That's it. No denial, no detail, just calm in the eye of the storm. But behind the scenes, a transformation was underway. Beyoncé wasn't just healing. She was preparing to speak in the only language she's ever trusted, music. 2 years later, the world gets Lemonade, an explosive visual album that doesn't just confirm the suspicions, it transcends them. It's cinematic, heartbreaking, empowering. Songs like Hold Up, Sorry, and Don't Hurt Yourself echo with the fury of betrayal. Beyoncé sings of cheating, of breaking down, of nearly walking away. She names no names, but every line is loaded, every image sharp. Becky with the good hair becomes an internet meme. Jay-Z becomes a meme. But Beyoncé? She becomes a phoenix. Critics hail the album as a masterpiece. Fans see it as strength, vulnerability, and vengeance, all wrapped in gold. And Jay-Z? He responds the only way he can. 444. His musical apology. A man admitting failure, owning his flaws, begging for redemption. And together, they rewrite the narrative. Not as victims of scandal, but as survivors, artists, partners. Then they hit the road again, hand in hand, cashing in on the drama with a tour that earns over $250 million. It wasn't just damage control, it was business genius. By the 2010s, Jay-Z and Beyoncé weren't just icons. They were an institution. Their music, just one slice of the pie. Behind the scenes, they were building something bigger, something most fans couldn't see. A financial empire. Jay-Z wasn't rapping about money. He was blueprinting it. His first move, Master Recordings. In 2004, he became president of Def Jam. But he didn't just want the job, he wanted leverage. He negotiated ownership of his Master Recordings. That deal alone, worth millions in royalties to this day. Then came the chessboard. He sold Rocawear for $204 million, bought Armand de Brignac champagne, Ace of Spades, and turned it into a hip-hop luxury status symbol. In 2021, LVMH bought half for over $300 million. Next, Deuce Cognac. When a valuation dispute exploded with Bacardi in 2023, Jay didn't back down. He sold his stake for a reported $750 million. Streaming. He bought Tidal for $56 million, then flipped it to Jack Dorsey's company Square, now Block, for $297 million. He wasn't just making money, he was multiplying it. Beyoncé was just as ruthless, and just as refined. $50 million with Pepsi, $60 million with Netflix. Her Ivy Park fashion line with Adidas became a statement, not just a brand. Her concerts became global events. Her most recent Renaissance tour grossed hundreds of millions, matching sports teams in revenue, surpassing many. But what makes Beyoncé dangerous in business isn't just her talent. It's her control. She controls her image like a studio executive. She releases albums with no warning, launches visuals that break the internet. Every move is a marketing masterstroke. Together, Jay-Z and Beyoncé weren't just rich, they were strategic. In 2023, they purchased a Malibu estate for $200 million, the most expensive home ever sold in California. Jay-Z also collects fine art. He famously spent $4.5 million on a Jean-Michel Basquiat painting. It now hangs inside their home, not just as decoration, but as a financial asset. Every dollar they spend is a message. We're not celebrities. We're royalty. And they don't move alone. They created the now famous Black Excellence brunches. Attendees, billionaires, artists, moguls, politicians, even the Obamas. At the center of it all, Jay and Bey, sipping champagne, surrounded by a world they helped shape. But in every empire, power creates gravity. And sometimes the people drawn to you are the ones who can bring everything down. Every empire casts a shadow. And Jay-Z and Beyoncé's empire? It's massive. For years, the Carters projected flawless control. But behind the perfection, the internet saw patterns. And in the dark corners of the web, the whispers grew louder. Some said the Carters weren't just rich and talented. They were chosen, groomed, inducted. Jay-Z's infamous diamond hand symbol, was it just a Rockefeller logo? Or a sign of secret society allegiance? YouTube exploded with evidence of Illuminati rituals in Beyoncé's performances. Backmasked lyrics, pyramid hand signs, occult symbols. Jay-Z fueled it himself, wearing shirts with Aleister Crowley's phrase, "Do what thou wilt." Was he trolling? Maybe. But when power reaches a certain height, jokes become prophecy for those watching below. And while the Carters laughed off the conspiracy, other shadows weren't so funny. Rymir Satterthwaite, a man who spent over a decade claiming to be Jay-Z's illegitimate child. His mother allegedly had a relationship with Jay in the early 90s, when she was 16. Jay-Z has never taken a DNA test. Courts threw out one case due to statute of limitations. But in 2024, Rymir came back with a new lawsuit, accusing Jay's legal team of corruption. He wasn't seeking money. He wanted the truth. Jay-Z's camp called it baseless. But the timing? Curious. Rymir's claim hit just weeks before an even bigger bombshell. Kathy White, dead at 28. Some say she was pregnant. Some say she was Jay-Z's mistress. She died suddenly of an aneurysm in 2011. No foul play was found. No evidence of wrongdoing. But for internet sleuths, the narrative wrote itself. Inconvenient secrets don't just disappear. They're made to. And then came the Aaliyah theory. That her death in a 2001 plane crash, just as Beyoncé's solo star was beginning to rise, wasn't coincidence. That it was orchestrated. No facts, just speculation, fueled by grief, fed by coincidence. But in the world of myth-making, facts are secondary. What matters is the story. And suddenly the Carters weren't just legends. They were suspects. Even Beyoncé wasn't immune. One viral rumor claimed she faked her pregnancy with Blue Ivy. Another insisted Solange wasn't her sister, but her daughter. Absurd? Yes, but absurdity doesn't stop traction. And the Carters' silence made space for every lie to take root. Most of these rumors never left the fringe, but some would soon be eclipsed by reality. Because in late 2023, the world saw the first real cracks. And the fault line began with an old friend, whose downfall could bring Jay-Z's entire house with it. Jay-Z and Diddy, two kings of hip-hop, two moguls in matching suits, glasses clinking at billionaire brunches. Decades of friendship, collaborations, shared stages, and whispered strategy. But in late 2023, that alliance became a liability. November. A lawsuit from singer Cassie detonates across headlines. She accuses Diddy of sexual abuse, violence, coercion, over 11 years. The next day, it's settled. Fast, quiet. But it's just the beginning. Soon, more lawsuits flood in, each one darker, each one pointing toward a man who had ruled the music world, now being revealed as something else entirely. And through every revelation, one name remains noticeably silent: Jay-Z. He says nothing. Beyoncé says nothing. But pictures don't forget, and the internet starts to unearth a different history. Photos of Jay and Beyoncé at Diddy's parties, on Diddy's yachts, in Diddy's orbit. If Diddy was running a criminal empire behind closed doors, who else was standing in those rooms? The guilt by association begins to rise. And then, it becomes something else. December 8th, 2024. 4 days after Jay-Z's 55th birthday, a new lawsuit is filed in New York. This time, it's not just whispers. It's a direct accusation. The plaintiff, Jane Doe, claims she was 13 years old, that in the year 2000, she was drugged and assaulted by Diddy and Jay-Z. The details are harrowing. The story is disturbing. And the reaction? Earth-shattering. Jay-Z's camp responds with fury. They call it extortion, baseless, heinous. Jay himself releases a rare public statement, swearing to fight to the end. His lawyer accuses the opposing attorney, Tony Busby, of running a publicity stunt. Busby fires back, claiming Jay-Z's team sent investigators to intimidate past clients. It's not just a legal battle, it's war. But the damage is done. Jay-Z's name is now attached to one of the worst allegations imaginable. The very next night, Jay-Z is photographed smiling with Beyoncé and their daughter Blue Ivy at a Disney premiere. A family portrait, a show of normalcy, a message. We're untouchable. But the internet isn't buying it. 50 Cent mocks them online. Critics speculate whether Jay-Z's high-profile NFL deal, his involvement with the Super Bowl halftime show, could be pulled. Even the NFL responds publicly, vouching for Jay as a great partner. When the National Football League is forced to defend you, you know the headlines are hot. Jay-Z and Beyoncé have spent decades mastering image, turning betrayal into music, turning rumors into silence, turning flaws into platinum. But this is different. If more allegations surface, if the case escalates, if Jay-Z can't disprove it, the empire could fracture. The man who once said, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman," now finds his business on trial. And Beyoncé? Her loyalty, once celebrated, now becomes a question mark. Will she stand by him? Or is this where the kingdom begins to crumble from within? They built a billion-dollar dynasty, from the projects of Brooklyn to the stages of the Super Bowl, from church choirs in Houston to royal status at the Grammys. They were music's power couple, black excellence, flawless, strategic, divine, but maybe no empire is truly unshakable. Jay-Z and Beyoncé now face their greatest test. Not a scandal they can flip into a tour, not a rumor they can outlast, but something darker, something real. As the lawsuits multiply and the truth claws its way to the surface, the question remains, will this be another page in their myth, or the end of the legend altogether? The story isn't finished. But one thing is certain, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Imagine this. A technology built to liberate people from financial control is quietly being swallowed by the very institutions it sought to escape. In boardrooms from Wall Street to Shanghai, power brokers are quietly acquiring something once reserved for the rebels: Bitcoin. Behind the scenes, Bitcoin ETFs are exploding in billions of net inflow. Sovereigns are stockpiling. And slowly, maybe too quietly, the balance of power is shifting. The question is no longer if Bitcoin will go mainstream. The real question is, who will control it when it does? Because if Bitcoin ends up in the hands of a few institutions, it may still survive, but it will lost its true soul. When Satoshi Nakamoto first released the Bitcoin white paper in 2008, it wasn't just about money. It was a philosophy, a call for financial sovereignty, a rebellion against the system that bailed out banks while ordinary people lost their life savings and homes. And for over a decade, that spirit held strong. Bitcoin was messy, volatile, misunderstood, and yet fiercely decentralized. It belonged to the people. Bitcoin miners ran their own rigs. Holders stored their keys. The community taught itself through forums, memes, and relentless conviction. But then came the shift. The institutions and governments arrived. At first, institutions ignored Bitcoin. Then they laughed. Then they panicked and started buying. In the past few years, we've seen the rise of Bitcoin ETFs, corporate treasuries, and even governments adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. MicroStrategy went all in, Tesla followed, El Salvador made it legal tender, and soon, US Bitcoin ETFs alone will amass over $100 billion in assets. Suddenly, Bitcoin wasn't just magic internet money, it was digital gold, a portfolio hedge, a yield strategy, a new asset class. The revolution had been tamed, or so it seemed. But here's the thing. When institutions buy Bitcoin, they don't use it. They don't run nodes. They don't care about decentralization. They hold it, stake it, report it. And slowly, they reshape the narrative. What was once a tool for peer-to-peer freedom starts looking a lot like a glorified bond. But the real danger? That goes deeper. What happens if institutions control most of the supply? It's not just about who owns the coins. It's about who controls the story. You see, Bitcoin was born to disrupt centralized finance. But if BlackRock, Fidelity, or sovereign funds hold over 50% of supply, haven't we just rebuilt the same power structures in a new skin? These few giants could influence protocol changes through lobbying or sponsorships, manipulate narratives about what Bitcoin is for, act as gatekeepers, deciding who can access their BTC. They will use price volatility as the weapon against us. Retail panic sells. Institutions rebalance. One coordinated exit from a few whales could tank the market, wiping out retail wealth in minutes. We've already seen glimpses: large sell-offs, flash crashes, liquidations cascading across exchanges. But what if next time it's planned? You see, with big players come big regulators. Imagine this future. KYC on every transaction, clean versus tainted Bitcoin, blacklisted wallets, forks proposed to make Bitcoin compliant. It sounds dystopian, but it's already creeping in, quietly. The SEC isn't trying to kill Bitcoin, it's trying to control it. And when institutions welcome oversight, decentralization dies a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Imagine this: grassroots education, open source wallets, local Bitcoin meetups, privacy tools. All of this fades when most coins are locked in ETF vaults and cold storage custodians. The community weakens, the culture dissolves. Bitcoin becomes a number on a brokerage screen. As of mid-2025, the data tells us a surprising story. Despite the noise, individuals still hold the majority of Bitcoin. Here's the breakdown. Institutions and public companies: 16% including MicroStrategy, Tesla, Grayscale, and ETFs. Governments: 1% including US reserves. That leaves us around 83% in the hands of individuals. But don't celebrate yet, because the trend is shifting. In 2024 alone, over 525,000 BTC moved from individuals to institutions. Bitcoin ETFs are extremely hungry, and they're just getting started. Let's do the math. If institutions continue acquiring 400,000 BTC per year, they could control 50% of the available supply within the next 5 years. But here's the catch: they can't buy what isn't for sale. As individuals, we must hold our Bitcoin long-term and avoid selling it to these institutions. The truth is, there are only 21 million Bitcoin, and of that, 19 million have already been mined. 4 million are lost forever. 68% haven't moved in over a year. And millions are self-custodied in cold wallets, not exchanges. To dominate 50%, institutions would need 10 million BTC. That means buying up another 5 million BTC, convincing millions of holders to sell, outbidding themselves as price rises. Every coin they buy makes the next one harder to acquire. And they know it. That's why their real goal isn't ownership, it's influence. Even if institutions never own 50%, they could still control the narrative by funding media, education, and influencers. Market through volume, derivatives, and coordinated plays. Regulations by working with governments to clean up crypto. Think about it. Individual holders sets the ethos, but institutions now set the tone. This subtle shift from ownership to cultural control is already underway. There is no perfect system, but here's what a healthy ecosystem could look like. Individuals: 50% to maintain decentralization and resilience. Institutions: 30% to add stability, liquidity, adoption. Governments: 10% for strategic reserves, signaling legitimacy. Miners and developers: 10% to align incentives with network upkeep. You see, this isn't a prescription, it's a balance. Enough institutional presence to protect the asset, enough individual control to protect the mission. But now let's paint the darkest future. If institutions hold 60%, individuals like you and me would be priced out, developers would be funded by ETFs, miners would rely on grants from Wall Street, and the average user, just a spectator. Bitcoin survives, but it becomes a shell of its former self, a digital asset, not a digital revolution. This isn't just speculative fiction, it's a warning, because the future of Bitcoin doesn't just depend on its code, it depends on us. At the time of this video, the good news is all is not lost. Self-custody is rising again post-FTX collapse. Education movements like Bitcoin for the 99% are growing. Millions in Argentina, Nigeria, Lebanon use BTC as real money. Grassroots developers are building tools for privacy and sovereignty. This is the soul of Bitcoin. And it's not going quietly. If you think Bitcoin is just a store of value, maybe this doesn't matter. But if you believe it's a tool for freedom, then this question is everything. Because ownership isn't about percentage points. It's about power. And right now, that power is shifting. So the next time someone tells you Bitcoin is going mainstream, ask them, whose hands is it going into? Because in this game, who holds the keys holds the future.
It starts the way all harmless habits do. You open the app for a quick laugh before bed. Maybe a kitchen hack, a funny prank, or that dance trend your coworker mentioned. 10 minutes, you promise yourself. Just 10 minutes. But when you finally look up, an hour has slipped away. Your eyes sting from the blue glow. Your coffee is cold. Your to-do list is untouched. And yet your thumb keeps moving, the upward flick as automatic as breathing. That's when it clicks. This app isn't just entertaining you, it's studying you. It knows where you pause, how long you linger, the exact second your attention drifts. It notices which clips you pretend not to like, but secretly watch twice. It maps the rhythm of your swipes like a metronome for your mind, then feeds that data into a machine built to keep you here longer, and longer, and longer. Short videos don't mean harmless videos. Short can mean compressed, condensed into the most irresistible, high-impact moments, stacked one after another with no friction, no loading, no natural stopping point. The result isn't a timeline, it's a conveyor belt. You don't browse it, it carries you. And every step along that belt is calculated. On the surface, TikTok looks like a new kind of television, infinite, personalized, always on. But critics say it behaves more like a behavioral laboratory with billions of unwitting test subjects. TikTok didn't stumble into success, it engineered it, by weaponizing 3 design principles: instant start, variable reward, and endless progression. Instant start means no decision time. You open the app, you're instantly watching. There's no pause to reconsider whether you want to be here. Variable reward is the slot machine principle. The next swipe could be boring, decent, or amazing. That unpredictability keeps your brain rolling the dice, hunting for the jackpot video. Endless progression removes natural stopping points. There's no, you're all caught up. The conveyor belt never ends, so neither does the habit. Behind the curtain, TikTok's recommendation engine learns you like an instrument, logging watch times, rewatches, shares, comment reads, skips, and even the speed of your swipes. In 2021, the Wall Street Journal tested this by creating dozens of bot accounts programmed with specific interests. Within hours, the bots were fed content so tailored, from depression rants to extreme fitness, that it was clear the system didn't just reflect preferences, it amplified them. Real-world stories show the same pattern. A teenager searching for skincare tips ends up drowning in extreme routines and expensive products. A new parent seeking baby sleep advice is bombarded with conflicting, anxiety-inducing rules. A college student who pauses on one political rant finds their feed morphing overnight into an outrage machine. Even creators are pulled into the loop. Post a clip, get a spike of views, and TikTok whispers, post again, post more, don't stop now. Some creators check analytics dozens of times a day, riding the highs, dreading the drop. The app doesn't just reward attention, it manufactures craving. And that craving was the fuel for TikTok's next move, building a growth machine powerful enough to dominate the globe. Most platforms wait for trends to appear, TikTok manufactures them. It starts with frictionless creation. Pro-level editing, filters, captions, music libraries, all inside the app. No software, no gear, no barrier to entry. Then comes the first video boost. New users often see their first post pushed far beyond their follower count. Imagine waking up to tens of thousands of views. It's addictive, and it works on creators as much as viewers. TikTok also seeds trends deliberately. Staff package challenges with sounds, hashtags, and effects designed for maximum copyability. The easier a trend is to replicate, the faster it spreads. In 2017, ByteDance bought Musical.ly, merging its massive user base into TikTok. Overnight, lip-sync culture fused with TikTok's hyper-personalized feed, and growth went vertical. By 2020, TikTok was the most downloaded app on the planet. The watermark on every exported TikTok turned other platforms into free billboards. Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Whether you loved or hated TikTok, you saw it everywhere. Creators learned the rules. Trending sounds, quick hooks, readable captions. Follow them and you grow. Break them and you vanish. In China, Douyin is already a retail powerhouse. Live shopping streams, instant checkout, algorithm-driven product recommendations. ByteDance calls it shoppertainment. TikTok is importing that model west. TikTok Shop integrates purchases directly into the feed. Tap a tagged product in a video or live stream, pay without leaving the app, and you're done. In the UK, beauty brands have sold out entire product lines in minutes during TikTok flash sales. The secret? Urgency. Countdown timers, almost gone alerts, and purchase notifications popping up in real time. It's not old-school product placement. It's an adaptive sales funnel. Watch travel videos, expect luggage ads, linger on cooking content, get hit with kitchen gadgets. Small sellers can explode overnight. One artisan jewelry shop in Manchester went from selling 50 pieces a week to over 1,200 after a single viral TikTok. But the same shop faced chaos. 300 returns in 1 month, plus dozens of copycat stores selling knockoffs. TikTok's privacy policy allows it to collect location, device IDs, browsing history, and more. Security researchers have alleged clipboard access and keystroke tracking. TikTok denies improper behavior. ByteDance is headquartered in Beijing under China's 2017 National Intelligence Law, which can require companies to assist state intelligence work. In 2022, BuzzFeed News published leaked audio from internal meetings in which employees allegedly said, "Everything is seen in China." The revelation sparked Project Texas, a plan to route US data through Oracle servers, but lawmakers remain skeptical. India banned TikTok entirely. The US, UK, and Canada banned it from government devices. Former ByteDance employees have claimed that engineers in China could still access overseas user data. One lawsuit alleged that data was used internally to track journalists. TikTok denies the claims, calling them baseless. Critics say the risk isn't just stolen information, it's the ability to quietly tweak what content rises and falls. Influence, after all, is the ultimate currency. In China, Douyin promotes positive energy, patriotic, educational, wholesome content, and limits kids' usage to 40 minutes per day. Outside China, TikTok serves something very different. Pranks, hypersexualized dances, political outrage, and viral distractions. Reports have claimed TikTok suppressed videos on Tibet, Taiwan, and Hong Kong protests. TikTok says these were moderation mistakes. Skeptics see a pattern. Researchers at Australian Strategic Policy Institute argue that the domestic foreign content split mirrors a cognitive domain strategy: strengthen your own population's focus, dilute foreign focus. The algorithm's power isn't in telling you what to think, it's in deciding what you think about. Over time, that shapes perception as effectively as direct propaganda. And because the system learns in real time, it can adjust rapidly. During certain geopolitical flashpoints, analysts have observed shifts in trending content within hours. Subtle, but enough to influence public sentiment at scale. If the allegations are true, TikTok isn't just an entertainment app. It's a cultural lever, one capable of moving entire societies without them noticing the push. From engineered addiction loops to manufactured fame, from shoppertainment to alleged surveillance, TikTok's story is about control. Of your time, your money, your data, and maybe even your worldview. Its brilliance is undeniable. It made creation effortless, discovery magical, and fame feel within reach. But brilliance without boundaries has a cost. A system built to keep you from leaving will keep you from leaving, even when you should. A feed tuned to amplify extremes will push you toward them. And if that feed can steer culture, you may never notice the steering until it's too late. The safest assumption isn't that nothing could go wrong. It's that everything designed into the system will work exactly as intended, and if you let it, the algorithm won't just predict your next move, it will decide it. Jeff Bezos did not start his life at the top of the business world. Long before he became one of the richest people in history, he was a young man with big dreams, working a summer job at McDonald's. This early experience taught him about automation and serving customers, ideas that would later define his entire career. He was raised in New Mexico, spending summers on his grandfather's ranch, where he learned the value of self-reliance and fixing things himself. These lessons shaped a mind that was always looking for new ways to solve problems and build systems from the ground up, no matter how complex the challenge seemed to be. His early brilliance was clear to everyone around him. Bezos was a star student who loved science and technology. He was fascinated by the Apollo moon landing and held a lifelong dream of exploring space, a passion that would one day lead to his company, Blue Origin. He went to Princeton University where he studied computer science and electrical engineering, preparing himself for a future driven by technology. After graduating, he quickly climbed the corporate ladder on Wall Street, becoming the youngest senior vice president at a successful investment firm called D. Shaw & Company. He had a secure, high-paying job, but a new idea was taking hold of his imagination. In 1994, Bezos noticed something incredible. The internet was growing at a rate of 2,300% a year. He saw an opportunity that was just too big to ignore. He decided to leave his comfortable Wall Street career behind to start his own company. With a brave leap of faith, he and his then-wife Mackenzie Scott drove across the country to Seattle. His parents invested $300,000 of their life savings into his idea, a risky bet on their son's vision. He started his new business in his garage, a humble beginning for what would become a global empire. He called it Amazon, and his first product was books. The early days were not easy, and Amazon almost did not make it. When the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, hundreds of internet companies went out of business. Amazon survived, but only because Bezos made tough, sometimes ruthless decisions. He cut costs everywhere he could and implemented a strict, data-driven management style. He demanded absolute commitment from his employees, creating a high-pressure culture where only the most determined could succeed. This demanding approach, focused on long-term growth over short-term profits, saved the company and set the stage for its incredible expansion. The principles of survival from those years became the core of Amazon's DNA. Amazon quickly grew beyond its origins as an online bookstore. Bezos' vision was always much bigger. He wanted to create the everything store. But his most powerful creation was not a product you could buy. It was a service that ran silently in the background. In 2006, Amazon launched Amazon Web Services, or AWS. This platform was originally created to manage Amazon's own massive online operations. The company realized it could rent out its powerful computing infrastructure to other businesses. For 7 years, AWS had almost no serious competition, allowing it to become the backbone of the modern internet. The power of AWS is hard to overstate. It provides the cloud computing services that run countless websites, apps, and companies, including major players like Netflix. Even more significantly, it hosts the data for over 7,500 United States government agencies, from the CIA to the Federal Reserve. This gives Jeff Bezos and his company immense control over the world's digital infrastructure. Amazon is not just a store where people shop, it is the foundation upon which a huge part of our digital lives is built. This strategic move transformed Amazon from a retail giant into a fundamental utility of the 21st century. Bezos also pushed Amazon's reach directly into our homes with innovative new devices. The Kindle e-reader changed the publishing industry forever, giving Amazon enormous power over book prices and how authors connect with readers. Then came Alexa, the voice assistant inside Echo smart speakers. Marketed as a helpful convenience, Alexa also serves as a powerful data collection tool. Every command, question, and conversation is sent to Amazon's cloud. This data is used to understand consumer behavior, refine advertising, and sell more products, extending the company's influence from our shopping carts directly into our living rooms. This combination of e-commerce, cloud computing, and consumer devices created a powerful cycle. AWS generated enormous profits that funded Amazon's retail expansion, allowing it to undercut competitors and absorb losses for years to gain market share. The data collected from retail customers and Alexa users helped refine AWS services and develop new products. Each part of the empire supported the others, creating a fortress that was nearly impossible for competitors to breach. Bezos did not just build a company, he built an interconnected ecosystem designed for total market dominance, all centered on collecting and using data. The incredible efficiency and low prices that Amazon offers come at a significant human cost. Inside its massive warehouses, workers face grueling conditions. They are monitored by sophisticated surveillance systems that track their every move, pushing them to meet relentless productivity targets. Injury rates at Amazon fulfillment centers are notoriously high, and many employees report feeling treated like robots instead of people. The pressure is so intense that firings can be handled by an algorithm, with little human oversight. This high-pressure environment is a direct result of the company's obsession with speed and customer satisfaction, often at the expense of its own workforce. Amazon has also fought hard to prevent its workers from organizing. The company has a long and well-documented history of anti-union activities. It has spent millions on consultants to persuade employees not to form unions, and it has been accused of using propaganda and surveillance to identify and discourage organizers. The difficult conditions extend to its delivery drivers, who are often independent contractors working under extreme pressure. Stories have emerged of drivers having to skip bathroom breaks and urinate in bottles just to keep up with their demanding schedules, highlighting the dark side of Amazon's promise of one-day delivery. To protect and expand his empire, Bezos also moved into the world of media. In 2013, he purchased the Washington Post, one of America's most respected newspapers. While he claimed to support its journalistic independence, his ownership raised serious questions about his ability to shape public opinion and control narratives. Critics have pointed out that the paper rarely publishes deep investigations into Amazon's business practices. In a controversial move in October 2024, Bezos reportedly instructed the paper not to endorse a presidential candidate, a decision that was seen by many as a way to protect his business interests, particularly his space company Blue Origin, which was reportedly in talks with Donald Trump. This control over a major media outlet gives Bezos a powerful tool to influence politics and public discourse. By shaping the news, he can create a more favorable environment for his companies and push back against critics. This combination of economic power, data collection, and media influence creates a formidable shield. It allows Amazon to operate with a level of control that few companies in history have ever achieved. The purchase of the Washington Post was not just a business acquisition, it was a strategic move to secure his empire's place in the world for decades to come. Amazon's influence extends far beyond online shopping and cloud computing. The company has aggressively moved into many other industries, including groceries with its purchase of Whole Foods, pharmaceuticals, and streaming entertainment with Prime Video. Its strategy is often ruthless. It can host a competitor like Netflix on its AWS platform, while simultaneously building a rival service in Prime Video. It uses its vast resources to undercut smaller businesses on price, driving them out of the market. This immense market power makes it nearly impossible for new companies to compete on a level playing field, stifling innovation and competition. Furthermore, Amazon has become a master of tax avoidance. Despite earning billions in profits, the company often pays very little in federal income taxes. It uses legal loopholes and receives huge tax breaks from cities and states that are desperate to host its warehouses and headquarters. Bezos himself has openly admitted to using these strategies to minimize the company's tax burden. This means that while Amazon relies on public infrastructure like roads and the internet to run its business, it contributes very little to the public funds that support them, placing a greater burden on ordinary taxpayers and small businesses. As of 2024, with around 180 million Prime members in the United States alone, Amazon has become too big for consumer boycotts to be effective. The company is so deeply integrated into the fabric of modern life that many people find it impossible to live without it. It is our bookstore, our supermarket, our movie theater, and the digital foundation for thousands of other services we use every day. This centralization of power in a single corporation is unprecedented. It is built on a foundation of data exploitation, aggressive expansion, tax avoidance, and media control, creating an empire that seems to rival the influence of entire nations. This brings us to a fundamental question for our society. Is it healthy or safe for one person and one company to hold so much power? Jeff Bezos built an empire that has changed the world, delivering incredible convenience and technological innovation. But this progress has come with serious costs, harsh labor practices, crushed competition, and the erosion of privacy. As billionaires gain more control over our critical infrastructure, our news, and our political life, it raises concerns about the future of democracy itself. The story of Jeff Bezos and Amazon is not just a business story, it is a story about power in the 21st century and who gets to wield it. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comment below.
The first thing neighbors saw was fire, an orange glow swallowing the Denver night sky. Sirens wailed as smoke poured from a two-story home where two Senegalese families slept inside. Mothers clutched their babies, fathers frantically searched for a way out, and alarms screamed over the sound of cracking wood. One man made it to a window, shoving it open and leaping into the dark. His daughter jumped next, falling into his arms. His wife followed, coughing, panicked, but alive. But for the rest of the family trapped inside, time was gone. 5 lives, including a toddler, were lost before firefighters could even reach them. The tragedy devastated Denver's Senegalese immigrant community. But even as the ashes cooled, one question burned. Who would do this, and why? The answer was even more disturbing than anyone imagined. It wasn't a seasoned criminal, it wasn't a gang fight, it wasn't even a hate crime. It was revenge. Revenge for something as small, as replaceable as a stolen iPhone. And the person behind it wasn't an adult. He was just 16. His name, Kevin Bowie. But how does a teenager's anger over a stolen phone spiral into one of the deadliest arsons in Denver's history? And what high-tech detective work would finally unravel this case months later? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning, before the flames, before the panic, to the moment Kevin lost his phone, and something inside him snapped. Kevin Bowie was only 16 years old when his name became tied to one of the most shocking crimes Denver had ever seen. On the surface, he wasn't much different from countless other teens, restless, impulsive, chasing thrills. But Kevin was also running in dangerous circles. By his mid-teens, he was already what people on the street call an unlicensed pharmacist, making quick cash by selling drugs. He wasn't a kingpin, not even close, but in his world, image mattered, respect mattered. And Kevin wanted people to see him as someone who couldn't be messed with. Then, one night in 2020, that image shattered. Kevin was out making a deal when suddenly, it all went wrong. The transaction flipped on him, and in the chaos, someone robbed him. His merchandise was gone. But the thing that cut deepest wasn't the drugs. It was his iPhone. To most people, a stolen phone is an inconvenience. Annoying, sure, but replaceable. For Kevin, though, it was humiliation. His phone wasn't just a device. It held his contacts, his connections, his entire little empire. Someone had dared to take it from him. And that's where the dangerous part of Kevin's personality took over. Instead of letting it go, he stewed in anger. His pride was bruised, his ego demanded revenge. He became obsessed with finding out who had his phone, and when he did, he told himself they'd pay. Kevin opened Apple's Find My iPhone feature, the digital breadcrumb trail that lets you track a missing device. To his satisfaction, the app pinged back. The location pointed to a house in a nearby Denver neighborhood. Kevin thought he had found the thief's hideout. He thought the app had given him the exact address of the person who dared to cross him. What he didn't realize was that he was very, very wrong. And yet, Kevin didn't hesitate. He wasn't about to confront this supposed thief alone. He needed backup. And that's when he pulled 2 of his closest friends into the plot. Gavin Seymour, also 16, and Dylan Siegel, just 14 years old. Teenagers, barely old enough to drive, and yet about to plan something that would end with families in ashes. But what exactly did these kids plan to do? And how far were they willing to go over a phone? That's what we'll uncover in the next part of this story. Kevin wasn't just angry, he was consumed. In his mind, tracking that blinking dot on the Find My iPhone app meant he had uncovered the thief's house. And if someone had the audacity to take what was his, then Kevin decided he'd make sure they regretted it. But he wasn't going to do it alone. He turned to 2 of his closest friends, Gavin Seymour, another 16-year-old with his own rebellious streak, and Dylan Siegel, barely 14. These weren't hardened criminals, they were kids. But under Kevin's leadership, they began talking about a plan that would escalate far beyond anything they could fully grasp. At first, it sounded like reckless bravado. They'd break into the house, teach the thief a lesson, maybe scare him. But as the days passed, the talk hardened into intent. And soon, Kevin's plan was shockingly clear. They wouldn't just break in, they'd burn the place down. The 3 teenagers began gathering supplies. Cans of gasoline, black hoodies, masks from a local costume shop. They even studied the house online, searching for photos of its interior layout so they wouldn't be caught off guard. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment prank. It was deliberate, calculated. They mapped their moves. They rehearsed in their heads, and in their young minds, they convinced themselves it was justified. When the night finally came, the adrenaline was high. Kevin, Gavin, and Dylan pulled their hoods over their heads and tightened their masks. The surveillance cameras from a neighbor's home would later capture them sneaking into the backyard, 3 shadows moving quietly, nervously, but with purpose. Gasoline splashed against the walls and floor, The boys emptied their cans, dousing the inside of the house until the smell was suffocating. Then with one final spark, flames erupted. The fire caught fast, racing along the accelerant and swallowing the rooms in minutes. The three teens didn't stick around. They sprinted back into the night, disappearing into the darkness, convinced they had struck back at the thief who had humiliated Kevin. What they didn't know, the part that turned this from a reckless act of revenge into a devastating tragedy, was that the house they set ablaze wasn't the home of any phone thief. Inside were two Senegalese families, 8 people in total, and by the time the fire alarm screamed, it was already too late. But how exactly did the families inside fight to survive? And what desperate attempts were made as the flames closed in? That's where the story turns from shocking to heartbreaking. It was just after midnight when the flames erupted. Inside the Denver home, 2 Senegalese families were fast asleep. For them, it was supposed to be an ordinary summer night. For some, it would be their last. The fire spread with terrifying speed. Smoke filled the hallways. Fire alarms blared. Babies began to cry as parents scrambled awake, their rooms already choking with fumes. One father rushed to the bedroom door, hoping to lead his family out, but the moment he opened it, a wall of thick black smoke surged in. The exit was gone. He slammed it shut, coughing, eyes burning. There was only one option left, the window. He yanked it open, climbed through, and jumped. Somehow, he landed safely. Seconds later, he held out his arms as his young daughter jumped after him. Then his wife jumped too, coughing and trembling, but alive. As they caught their breath outside, they could hear the horror unfolding inside the rest of the house. Another father was still trapped, desperately trying to gather his wife and children. He shouted instructions, trying to find a path to safety, but the smoke was already overwhelming. The man outside ran to the front of the house, frantically punching in a keypad code, trying to unlock the front door. If he could get it open, maybe the others could escape. But the system failed him. The code wouldn't work. At that moment, a police officer on patrol spotted the fire. He sped toward the home, rushing up to the front door where the panicked father was trying to get inside. Without hesitation, the officer shouted, and with one powerful kick, he smashed the door open. But what greeted him inside was unbearable. Flames tore through the house, heat pushing him back. On the floor, he caught a glimpse of a body, unmoving. He couldn't go any further. The fire was too strong. By the time firefighters arrived, the blaze had consumed nearly everything. They battled it with hoses, but the structure was already collapsing. When the flames were finally extinguished, the truth of the devastation emerged. 5 people had not made it out. Among them were Jibril and Adja Diol, their 22-month-old daughter Khadija, and 2 other relatives, Hassan and Jibril Jr. An entire branch of a family tree had been erased in a single night, all because of a teenager's obsession with revenge over a stolen phone. For Denver's Senegalese community, the loss was crushing. These families had come to America chasing opportunity, building a future, and in one night, it had all been stolen from them. But while survivors and neighbors grieved, investigators were already asking the hardest question: who could have done something like this? At first, there were no answers, no enemies, no clear suspects. For months, it seemed like the case might stay unsolved. Until investigators tried something bold, something that had never been attempted in a Denver courtroom before, and it would change everything. In the days after the fire, Denver police were left with devastation and almost no leads. The families inside had no known enemies. There were no obvious motives. To the community, it seemed like a senseless act of violence with no explanation. But detectives refused to let the trail go cold. They combed through surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses. That's when they found it. Grainy video of 3 hooded figures sneaking into the backyard of the burned house. The images weren't clear enough to identify them, but it confirmed one thing: this wasn't an accident. It was deliberate arson. Still, the big question remained: who were they? That's when investigators turned to a tool rarely seen in a case like this: a Google keyword search warrant. It was a bold, controversial move. The idea was simple. Whoever set this fire probably searched for the home's address beforehand, maybe to find directions, maybe to check the layout. So detectives asked Google to hand over data on anyone who had searched for that exact address in the days leading up to the fire. It was a digital dragnet, and while it raised privacy debates, in this case, it paid off. The results pointed back to a handful of IP addresses. From there, police traced the activity straight to 3 local teens: Kevin Bowie, Gavin Seymour, and Dylan Siegel. Once detectives had names, the rest fell into place. They dug into the boys' devices, their messages, their online activity. Evidence began to stack up, plans about the fire, purchases of masks, and the gasoline trail. In the end, the digital breadcrumbs told the story the teens thought they had erased. Their disguises couldn't protect them from the trail of data they left behind. By late 2020, police arrested all three. Mugshots of Kevin and Gavin were released, two teenagers staring blankly into the camera, their lives already changed forever. Dylan, being only 14, was processed differently, but still faced consequences that would follow him into adulthood. The community finally had answers, but it didn't make the tragedy any less painful. What started as revenge for a stolen iPhone had become the deadliest fire in Denver in more than a decade. And now, the justice system had to decide. What would happen to three teenagers who had destroyed so many lives? When the truth came out, Denver was stunned. Three teenagers, barely old enough to drive, were sentenced for one of the city's deadliest arsons. Kevin Bowie, the ringleader, received 60 years in prison. Gavin Seymour got 40. Dylan Siegel, just 14, was sent to juvenile detention and a young offender program. In court, grieving families listened as the details were read. No sentence could bring back the 5 lives lost in a single night. Outside Denver's Senegalese community mourned, "We are heartbroken. We will never forget." The case broke new ground. A Google keyword search warrant helped identify the teens, raising questions about privacy and justice. But the story doesn't end in the courtroom. What lingers is the silence left behind in a home that once rang with laughter. In the end, the true cost of revenge was far greater than anyone could imagine.
Picture this. Rachel Lee, a psychic in a quiet Oregon town, pulling up to her shop in a white Ferrari. The shop where she claimed she could read the future of people. To the locals, it didn't make sense. People drove pickup trucks here, not supercars. And nobody believed tarot cards paid that well to afford Ferrari. But for years, Rachel kept the car parked right out front. What the townspeople didn't know was that the Ferrari wasn't bought with her money. It was bought with someone else's. A lonely man's fortune was draining away, piece by piece. That man was Ralph, a 57-year-old bachelor. His family owned a successful tree farm and his wealth made him a perfect target. Rachel saw it instantly. She didn't just scam him out of gifts or cash, she reshaped his entire life. She inserted herself into his family business, his home, even his idea of love. And she didn't act alone, because the moment she predicted Ralph would meet a special woman, the story took a darker turn, and that's where the lie became something much bigger than anyone imagined. Ralph walked into Rachel Lee's psychic shop one afternoon, looking for guidance. He was 57, single, lonely, and isolated. To him, a psychic offered advice and connection. To Rachel, he was the kind of client she dreamed of, wealthy, eager, and trusting. From the start, she told him exactly what he wanted to hear. Her readings weren't mystical, they were calculated. Each visit, she pulled more details from him, about his family, his money, and his fears. And each detail became a tool she used to draw him closer. The relationship quickly shifted. It stopped being about fortune-telling and started looking like friendship. Ralph began buying her small gifts, writing her checks, and helping with her expenses. She knew how to accept generosity without pushing too far, at least at first. Then, she crossed the threshold into his daily life. Ralph hired her as his housekeeper. Soon after, she was also handling his elderly father's bills. Eventually, she became caretaker for his father full-time. With every role, Rachel gained more control. She wasn't just a psychic anymore, she was part of the household. Over the next 2 years, her position solidified. Ralph paid her $9,000 a month for her services, a salary she set for herself. For him, it felt like loyalty. For her, it was income disguised as trust. And then one day, Rachel came him with the prediction that would bind him even tighter. Rachel told him he was destined to meet someone very special soon, a romantic partner, blonde, English accent, someone who would finally give him the love he'd been missing his whole life. To Ralph, it sounded like dream come true, and not long after, the prediction seemed to come true. One day, Ralph was at Portland International Airport. A woman with blonde hair and a crisp English accent walked up and started talking to him. Her name, she said, was Mary Marks. She claimed to be an exchange student in her 20s living in California. She laughed at his jokes. She seemed genuinely interested. For Ralph, who had spent decades alone, it was like lightning struck. They exchanged numbers. The calls started almost immediately. Ralph in Oregon, Mary in California, hours on the phone, late into the night. The distance didn't matter, not to him. 2 years later they married. It was a quick wedding, arranged to help her secure a visa. Ralph didn't care. He had never been married before. For him, the ceremony meant everything. He even decorated his license plate with a frame that read, "Ralph Hearts Mary." Interestingly, Mary also told him she was a bookkeeper. Because of this, Ralph started giving her with tasks in the family business. Soon she was handling bookkeeping alongside Rachel, who by then was already deeply embedded in his finances. Together, the two women had full access to Ralph's wealth. But while Ralph was celebrating his first taste of love, Rachel and Mary were celebrating something else: control. Rachel began selling off Ralph's investments. She diverted money to herself, to Mary, and to her own boyfriend. The spending was bold. Luxury trips, real estate in California, designer watches, even corporate credit cards swiped for world travel. It was no longer a psychic's hustle, it was a full-scale takeover. And Ralph? He saw only what they wanted him to see. He thought he had a wife, a friend, and a family. He thought he had finally built the life he had been missing. But he didn't know the most important detail about Mary Marks. For years, Ralph strongly believed he had found love. He believed Mary Marks was his wife, his partner, but none of it was real. The truth? Mary Marks was not some 20-something exchange student. She was Rachel Lee's biological daughter. Her blonde hair was a wig, her English accent was fake, even her name was a makeup. When she first met Ralph at the airport, she wasn't in her 20s. She was just 17 years old. By the time they married, she was 19. The paperwork for their marriage was never filed. On paper, the union didn't exist. To Ralph, though, it felt real. He had the ring, the license plate frame, and the daily phone calls. He thought he had finally found family. Mary deepened the illusion with the promise of a child. Ralph had always wanted to be a father. He and Mary agreed to try IVF. Since they had never been intimate, she asked him to provide a sample. She claimed she would take it to a doctor in California. Months later, she returned pregnant, and when the baby was born, she introduced him to Ralph as his son. She named the boy, oh, you wouldn't believe this, Giorgio Armani, the Italian fashion designer and founder of the Armani luxury fashion house. But Ralph didn't care. He was overwhelmed with joy. He loved the boy instantly. He welcomed him as his heir. He believed his dream of having a family had finally come true. But even this, investigators later said, was staged. Mary's pregnancy wasn't through Ralph, and the baby she brought to Oregon wasn't hers either. According to reports, she borrowed the infant from a family member and presented him as Ralph's child. It was deception on every level: marriage, motherhood, identity, and Ralph accepted it all. Yet the fraud didn't stop with family. Things get much worse for Ralph from then on. Ralph's father passed away. Everything changed. The family's successful tree farm, the business that had supported them for decades, now belonged to Ralph. It was more than just land, it was legacy. It was the proof of his family's hard work. Rachel Lee was still managing his finances at that point, and she saw her golden opportunity. She told Ralph that he was broke. She told him he owed inheritance taxes so large that the only way to pay them was to sell the farm. Of course, it wasn't true, but Ralph trusted her completely. He believed her every word. So he sold the tree farm. The sale brought in $122 million. To Ralph, it felt like a sacrifice, giving up the land to save his finances. To Rachel, it was a jackpot. She began spending immediately. Another psychic shop, properties in California, designer watches, exotic cars, even gifts for her boyfriend, who enjoyed the sudden luxury as much as she did. Meanwhile, Ralph thought his money was being managed responsibly. He thought Rachel was guiding him, protecting him. In reality, she was draining him. And while millions vanished, the people in town started noticing things that didn't add up. Oregon's small towns are places where neighbors know each other's well. People notice when someone new moves in, when a truck changes hands, when a business looks busier than usual. So when Rachel Lee's psychic shop suddenly had a white Ferrari parked outside, it didn't take long for the gossip to start. Psychics in these towns didn't make that kind of money. Most people drove pickups, not six-figure sports cars. To locals, it screamed that something was off. Word spread quickly, and soon the police were listening too. Investigators subpoenaed Ralph's financial records. What they found looked impossible. Real estate purchases, luxury trips, European vacations, a Bentley, a Ferrari, all in Ralph's name. When officers asked him about it, he was stunned. "No," he said, "I never bought a Ferrari. I never bought any of that." After nearly 10 years, the scheme began to crumble. Investigators estimated that Rachel, her daughter, and her boyfriend had taken almost $15 million from Ralph. Even then, Ralph struggled to see them as criminals. He told investigators he just wanted his money back. He didn't want them punished. He still cared about them. Of course, the law saw it differently. Rachel Lee was arrested, Mary Marks was arrested, Rachel's boyfriend too. Both women took plea deals. Poor Ralph, even in court, he still resisted the truth. He continued to believe Mary was who she claimed to be, the blonde woman from England he'd met at the airport. So investigators had arranged something unusual. As part of her plea deal, Mary had to sit in a room with Ralph. She had to remove her wig. She had to confess that she was not who she pretended to be. Only then did Ralph finally see the truth. The case ended with prison sentences. Rachel Lee, the psychic who orchestrated the scheme, received 9 years. Her daughter, the woman Ralph knew as Mary Marks, was sentenced to about 2.5 years. Rachel's boyfriend, who joined in the spending spree, got 2 years. For the justice system, the outcome was clear. But for Ralph, it wasn't so simple. Even after the trial, even after the wigs came off and the lies were exposed, he held on to the memory of what he thought he had. Reports say he wore his wedding ring for years afterward. To him, it symbolized the family he had always wanted, even if it was built on deception. That's the tragedy behind the headlines. This wasn't just a financial scam. It was the theft of trust, love, and hope from a man who wanted nothing more than connection. Rachel's Ferrari may have been the detail that tipped off the town, but it was Ralph's loneliness that made the scheme possible in the first place. In the end, it wasn't the millions that broke him. It was learning that the people he trusted most were never real at all. And once trust is shattered, no amount of money can put it back together.